Hi again, everybody. It's Kevin Canessa coming to you from the newsroom of The Observer and TheObserver.com, and I am thrilled to have with me today Michael Gabriele. He is an author, and he is as prolific as it comes when it comes to New Jersey diners. And a couple of weeks ago, I had a chance to speak with him in person, and he's agreed to sit down with me today to talk about his work, and he's here with us now. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Good morning,
Good
and
morning.
a belated Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. The book that I got to see and that I purchased is your most recent, but you've written a couple of books on diners and other things. Can you tell me how you got into doing this and where it all stems from?
It all comes from my relationship with my publisher, The History Press, and working with them about 15 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, got very lucky. Pitched an idea for a book. I'm a journalist by trade, so becoming a book author was never really part of the business plan for me. It just kind of happened, and started working with them. They were very nice. They were very supportive. I've gotten to know a lot of the people, and so now I've published 5 books with them, all on New Jersey history topics. So the first book was about uh, professional bicycle racing in New Jersey. Believe it or not, New Jersey was the world center for professional cycling back in the golden days when cycling was a spectator sport and the grand velodromes were king. Then I did my first New Jersey diner history book, and that was very successful. And that really put me on the road with the History Press. I did a book on New Jersey Folk Festival. Um, I think on New Jersey folk music or folk revival music, I should say. I think New Jersey can lay some claim to being one of the centers for folk revival way back in the early 1900s. Um, then my publisher encouraged me to do another book on New Jersey diners. They said, "Oh, the first book was so good, let's do another one." I said, "All right." So that was the second book on diners, and now the fifth and newest book that I've just done came out about 18 months ago, Colonial Taverns of New Jersey. So that's my body of work with the History Press at the moment. So I'm
Absolutely.
very lucky, very happy, very proud to be working with them, and I, I can't tell you how it's such a good feeling. I'm so thankful for being a book editor. I'm book author. It's very nice, very
Sure.
nice.
I got to meet you because you did a presentation at the Kearny Library about diners,
Yes,
and
yeah.
I learned so much about diners that I didn't even know about. So, if you don't mind, I'd like to maybe take a little step back and talk a little bit about some of the things that you taught us that day, including
Okay.
the infancy stages of how diners came to be with these lunch wagons and things of that nature. Can you tell that story that you told at the library again?
Sure, sure. Would be happy to. Um, First of all, let's just make the statement. New Jersey is the diner capital of the universe. Absolutely, positively, no doubt about it. The the tradition of diners did start with the fabled lunch wagons, and lunch wagons started in Providence, Rhode Island, 1872. There was a man, I guess he was a very enterprising chap. His name was Walter Scott, and he had the idea of having a roadside attraction in downtown Providence. He realized that 9 o'clock at night, when people were getting out of work, second shift at factories and printing plants and things like that, there was really nowhere for them to go. At least not for blue collar people. And so he had this idea, inspiration. He got himself a wagon, a horse-drawn wagon, and he made sandwiches and hard-boiled eggs and cookies. Probably had his family help him. Coffee, and he would ride the streets of downtown Providence. And he knew when the factories would get out and when the trains would pull in. And he had himself a nice little business. And it sounds funny to say here in 2025, but this was a grand novelty.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody ever done anything like this before. There were way back, even like maybe 10 or 12 years before Walter Scott, there were these so-called freight wagons, and these are the old horse-drawn wagons. They're kind of rectangular. They're covered in black canvas, and they would go into a say like a factory at lunchtime, and they would offer people items for lunch, and maybe that's another little touchstone for the diner business.
Sure.
So the lunch wagon established itself as this roadside attraction for food, and especially for people in middle class people, blue collar people. Um, Going out to eat was kind of a radical concept.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, rich people went out to eat, and families. I mean, they didn't go out to eat; they couldn't afford it. But if you went to a lunch wagon, you could get yourself a nice little meal, a nice snack, talk with your friends, and it was a nice. It became a nice little institution. It was known as the night lunch business, and these wagons often would patrol streets during the evening hours, 10 p.m. to maybe 6 o'clock in the morning, and it became a very profitable business. And people were seeing what Walter Scott was doing. They said, "Hey, we could do that." And before you knew it, there were lunch wagons throughout New England. And it became so popular that companies, especially in Worcester, Massachusetts, started building wagons specifically for food distribution. I mean, I guess Walter Scott must have got himself like an old farm wagon or a municipal wagon and just retrofitted it.
Right.
But now they started building wagons specifically for food distribution. And that tradition spread, came down through New Jersey, and again, very popular, very profitable. Um, so the diner and also today's food trucks actually owe their ancestral origins to the old lunch wagons, and that's how the business started. And this idea that it was not just a place where you grab something to eat, but it had a social aspect to it.
Right.
And that's one of the things I'm always very interested in my books. Um, yeah, the diner architecture is important. The food, of course, is important, but the people are important. The memories they share at a diner, how the diner interacts with a community. I like that. I like that human interest angle. So that's a basis for my starting point for these books.
One of the first uh, in New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken, however, though you told us, was in Kearny. There was the Hudson wagon, right? But can you tell us a little
Yes.
bit about that and how that all came to be?
Well, Jerry O'Mahony, who actually operated his own lunch wagons in Hudson County, uh, I think I can credit him as being the great grandfather of the diner business. Jerry and his family had a tavern in Bayonne, so they were used to dealing with people and dealing with the public and serving food and serving drinks. And Jerry noticed these lunch wagons that were starting to proliferate throughout Hudson County. So he said to his brother Daniel, he said, "Hey, this looks like a nice business. We could do that." So they got themselves a wagon, and again, they were very successful. Uh, I think they actually had at one time they had a fleet of about 10 wagons throughout
Oh,
Hudson
wow.
County. But Jerry was a very he was a real entrepreneur. Didn't have a lot of formal education, but he was streetwise. He was smart, and he thought to himself, this lunch wagon business is a nice business. But he said, I bet the real money to be made here is in building the lunch wagons. So in his backyard in Bayonne, he and his brother and a professional carpenter named John Hanf, Hanf, started building lunch wagons. And the first one he built, 1913, was bought by two chaps who were in the Kearny area at the time, Vivan Kelly and Clarence Bivens. These guys were good chums. They were best buddies. They came down from New York State. They wanted to come to New Jersey and make some money and get jobs. Well, they were operating lunch wagons here and there throughout northern New Jersey. They put enough money together and they bought their own lunch wagon. and that was Jerry O'Mahony's first lunch wagon that he had built, 1913.
Wow.
And that's kind of an interesting angle because even back in those days and today especially, the idea of owning your business, owning the business is very important to people who have diners and back then lunch wagons. They didn't want to work for a boss. They didn't want to work in a factory. They didn't want to work in an office. They wanted to own the business. They liked working with people. Uh, they liked working with their hands. They liked the social aspect of it. They liked being part of the community. So these two guys in the Arlington section of what today is Kearny, they started their lunch wagon, and they operated at this little park, which was also adjacent to the old train station for uh, the Greenwood Lake train line that went to. So that's a pretty. I think that's a pretty significant chapter in New Jersey diner history. So Vivan Kelly, um, Clarence Bivens. They probably didn't know it at the time, but they're among the founding fathers of our diner business. The things that they did, the traditions that they set, the work standards. They really laid down the baseline for people who went on to own lunch wagons and then diners. So I think we can credit them as being some of the founding fathers. So,
Now,
and Kearny.
how did it all evolve into from lunch wagons to the actual physical diner? When did that all start to happen, and what was the impetus behind that evolution?
I guess the evolution has to do with the success of the business. And lunch wagons started out as fairly modest operations,
Right.
but as the lunch wagon operator became more profitable and started having more and more customers and doing more business, he would order a new lunch wagon, a bigger lunch wagon, uh, more services, more customers, could make more money. And then the lunch wagons just evolved. They just kept getting bigger and bigger. And then I suppose these lunch wagon operators at one point decided that, we don't need to be mobile anymore. We don't need to be horse drawn. We People know us right here on the corner of Elm and Main Street. This is where we're going to set up. We're gonna have our operation right here. And so the lunch wagon eventually evolved into a diner. And I'm not sure exactly. It was sometime in the early 1920s, but I think they might have taken some of their cues from train cars and the dining car. That's probably where that concept came from. So now they were no longer mobile lunch wagons. They now became stationary diners, and that's I guess that's a pretty good way to explain the transition and the evolution. And that's the same. That's exactly what happened to the two guys in Kearny.
Sure.
They were successful. Um, Pretty soon, they operated their lunch wagon for about 10 years. 1923, they bought a diner. Now Jerry O'Mahony had evolved into making diners, stationary diners. They bought a diner from him in 1923. Then they bought a really nice big air-conditioned diner, state of the art, 1947. And so they just kept progressing and progressing and doing good business. So that's kind of, so Kearny's kind of the microcosm of that. So I think that's a good explanation how it all came to be.
Truly. You had mentioned how some of them look like train cars, and one of the diners that you cited was the Summit Diner, which has that absolute train car look to it. Was that the
Yes.
idea, like that they wanted these diners to look like trains?
I think the idea was more from an architectural point of view. Um, the early diner builders probably took their cue from the Pullman train cars. I mean, this was like the creme de la creme of American manufacturing at the time. And then in from the beginning of World War One to the beginning of World War Two, America was in the machine age, and that was a period when all these brand new inventions were coming online: fast trains, fast cars, uh, motorcycles, and the idea was it was all these innovations were happening, home appliances, but there was an architectural concept known as streamline moderne, and that was it was sort of a subset of Art Deco, and it was the idea that you were trying to capture speed in your design, like how fast could a train go, how fast could a car go.
Right.
So the design had this basic concept of horizontal lines, rounded corners, glistening stainless steel, and that was to capture that idea of speed. So that was the prevailing architectural style of the day. And yes, some old trolley cars were converted into eateries and luncheonettes, but basically speaking, diners are diners and train cars are train cars. And people sometimes say, well, it's a train car diner. Well, what they really mean is maybe it looks like a train car. Now the Summit Diner that you mentioned in downtown Summit, I think today that's probably our most there's our best example of a real vintage New Jersey diner built 1938, 39, still in place and basically not changed over the
Right.
years. A miracle,
Yeah.
miraculous, and it's a great diner. I've been there many times,
Me too.
and um, I talked to a guy. He was the fire chief of Summit, and he said his father used to take him to the Summit Diner on Saturday mornings for breakfast, and the diner is located right near the train station in Summit.
Right.
And so, as a little boy, he would hear the train coming, and he would say, "Uh-oh, the diner's going to start moving." You think they were trained. So
Yep.
it's a good story. But so that's yeah. So that diner in Summit is a beautiful diner, and it's I think that's probably our best vintage diner in terms of architecture. That's still in place and still remains. So yeah, great place.
In the middle 2000s, I lived 2 blocks away from the Summit Diner. And I think I
You're a lucky
gained a
guy.
little bit more weight than I should have in that period because of the Summit Diner, but that it really is such a great place, and I love
It
getting
is.
go back,
It
right?
is. Yeah.
Uh,
Oh,
if you're
absolutely.
just if you're just joining us, Michael Gabriel is with us today, and Michael certainly knows more about diners than we'll ever know. And I'm going to ask you a tough question because
All right.
you have visited s- probably almost every diner in the state, if not very close, right?
There's too many diners.
Too many,
I've
yeah, it's
visited
true.
my share, but I can't visit
Every single
all
one.
of them. But
Right. But you do
yeah,
have a group, I'm sure, in your mind that you like more than others. Would you be
that's
willing to
true.
share which ones you like more than others? Because everybody
Uh,
has their favorite.
Everybody has their favorite. Yeah, this is it's a in my position as the author of the books. It's a little controversial, but not really.
I
Um,
understand.
okay, so that's no, it's I'm having fun. I'm having fun with that. My sentimental favorite is the TikTok here in Clifton, not far from where I live.
Right.
And I've been going to TikTok diners ever since I was a teenager. There have been three iterations of TikToks, all on the same place there, facing westbound Route 3. So that's my sentimental favorite.
Sure.
And yeah, I live right near there. One day, if I'm kind of at loose ends and I don't have anything to make it eat at home, I'll stop at the TikTok diner and get 2 eggs over easy or whatever. So,
Yeah,
so TikTok is a sentimental favorite. The food's good there,
it is.
but now there's a couple others. Now Top's Diner in East Newark, New Jersey. Now there's that they rebuilt that a couple of years ago, brand new diner, and that to me that's the next generation, the next plateau of what the diner is going to look like. It's magnificent. It's like a castle,
Yeah.
and the family that owns it spared no expense.
No.
They installed a real terrazzo floor there, and increased the parking area. And if you go there, I mean, the food is sensational. It's all fresh food. If you go there, there's always a line, but
Always.
it's worth the wait. Now, walk around the parking lot. You'll see license plates from all across the country. It's because of its fame. It's become a destination diner.
Right.
So anybody who's passing through New Jersey, oh hey, you got to stop at Tops. Wherever you're going, that's the place to be. All right, so that's there. There's a wonderful diner in Keyport, the Broad Street Diner, owned by a young Greek American couple. Wonderful place, beautiful, great food, small, original Jerry O'Mahony stainless steel diner, and I went there first in 2015 when they first opened,
Right.
and boy, what a place! And
Yeah.
it's all first name basis. Everybody knows each other. You sit at the counter. In 10 seconds, you'll start up an interesting conversation with somebody who's going from here to there. It's what a place. I love. I mean, it's in Keyport, so I can't go there all the time,
Right.
but I'm due for a visit, so I'll be going there soon.
Beautiful.
So and then down the shore, uh, on the rare occasion when I go to Long Beach Island, and I don't go there that often,
Right.
but Mustache Bill is boy, he was the gold standard. I guess he still is. I've heard the diner, Mustache Bill's diner on Long Beach Island, has been up for sale now for 2 years,
Oh. Okay.
and I thought Bill Smith was going to retire. He told me he was. I talked to him, but he's still chugging along. On basically they've cut back their hours. They work on weekends, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Um, Now, if they sell the place, and I'm imagining he owns the property too. I mean, Long Beach Island, that's a valuable piece of property.
Yeah.
So I'm concerned if they do sell the place and Bill retires, well, that's going to be sad. But what's going to happen to that diner? That's a beautiful stainless steel diner built by the Fodero Company in Bloomfield, 1959.
Wow.
And I can only hope that the diner, if somebody buys the property, because they're going to put condos on it or something. I hope somebody does move the diner and relocates it and operates it. But it would be a shame to lose that diner, that piece of New Jersey history. So those are some of my favorites. So, but I whenever I'm traveling around, if I see a diner I've never been to, I'll stop in, get a sandwich, a couple eggs, coffee and pie. It's fun.
One thing that you mentioned that kind of reminded me of another diner is what's going on right now with the Lyndhurst Diner. John
Yeah,
Secularis was an old friend of mine, and when he died, there was so
yeah,
much, there was so many people were wondering what was going to happen, and obviously they haven't opened since the pandemic. They stayed open after John first died, but
yeah.
talk about that a little bit if you can. My understanding is that they're going to probably knock that down and make apartments there. What do you know about that property?
Um, I met John years ago and had a picture of him in my first diner book.
Yes.
He was a real operator, and he's one of these Greek old timers. He told me the story. He came to the United States when he was a teenager. He jumped ship, or whatever that means. I don't know, maybe he was traveling like on a merchant marine ship. He found a couple of relatives that he had in Hudson County, and started working at diners, and eventually he became a fairly well-to-do man. He
Yeah.
worked hard, saved his money, and he had the Lyndhurst Diner. I think he might have even owned the Rutt's Hut for a while
He
too.
did.
Maybe
And he
I
also
think
owned Dal's Diner in Jersey City.
that's where he started in Al's Diner. That's
Right.
where he started washing dishes. And he
Yeah.
told me that he and a buddy had an apartment like maybe 2 blocks away from Al's Diner. And they would have to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And when they woke up, they'd open the window, and there was the two German bakers in the diner were baking bread and pies and cookies,
Yeah.
and that beautiful aroma. It was all over the neighborhood. So that's what they woke up to every morning. Boy, that
Wow.
must have been a sensational thing. That's a real there's a real heartfelt memory. So yes,
Truly.
so John died. He was in ill health. Um, I have spoken with the family members, and I've spoken to them in confidence.
Right.
There's basically what I can tell you is there were two sides to the story.
Of course.
They were wondering if they were going to reopen the diner or not. See, they own the property. See, that's the key. There were all these rumors going around that this was going to happen. That they didn't have to do anything until they decided what they wanted to do,
Right.
because they own the property. See, a lot of times when an old diner closes, um, they close because they don't own the property. A new landlord will come in and say, "Hey, you know, you have a nice diner here, but you got to take it away because I want to build a 5-story multi-use structure here or
Right.
apartments."
Yeah.
That's why a lot of times diners, they get either torn down or they have to get moved. So I guess there's been a period where they've been in discussion, and yes, both sides told me that the diner is going to be demolished. And I actually stopped there one day not too long ago. There is a demolition notice on the front door.
Oh wow.
So, so it's sad, but life goes on, and we'll see what happens. I mean, again, that's a valuable piece of property
It
right there
sure
on that
is.
intersection.
Yeah.
So, okay, we say goodbye to Lyndhurst Diner. But
Yeah.
you know what I'm going to miss the most is the sign,
Oh
the
yeah.
uh,
It's
the little
still
baker
light.
man
It's
with the
still
hat.
light. It goes on every night. It's
That's
unbelievable.
okay. Well, that's so it's in that sense, it still lives. So
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
I'm with you on that. If you're just joining us, Michael Gabriel is with us, and I guess on our way out, what I'd like to know is what are you going to do next? You've accomplished so much, and you've written some incredibly wonderful books. What's next for Michael Gabriel?
Well, I got to tell you this Colonial Tavern book that came out in April of 2023. Um, it's just I tapped into something. It's taken off. New Jersey people are very smart. They're very proud of their history, and so I had an idea for this book and I developed it, and it's all about it. It talks about the colonial period up to and including the Revolutionary War, but I took a different perspective. Um, I didn't really write about battles, and I didn't write about the generals and encampments and things like that. I wrote about the so-called everyday people. Uh, People back then weren't everyday; they were extraordinary people in the 1700s and
Yeah,
1600s, and so taverns really became the uh, the focal point of the crossroads of the Revolution. That's what New Jersey was back in those days, and taverns became the seed beds of the Revolution, as one historian put it. I quoted him in the book. This was a place where patriots and also loyalists would meet, and they would discuss politics and they would discuss ideas. And eventually, this is where the patriots started having meetings and talking about, well, we don't really like this idea of tyranny from some king from across the ocean. We're going to declare independence and revolution. That's where they hatched a lot of their ideas.
wow.
So the tavern became that was really that held things together, and even during the war too. So the tavern was a place where the militias you'd be able to enlist in the militias. That's where the local village governments would meet. Um, you'd go there if you wanted to ride on the stagecoaches between New York and Philadelphia. It was in a lot of sense it was a hospitality business, um, but this was a place where you could meet. It was a public venue, and if you were a little careful, you could pretty much talk about whatever you wanted to talk about. So that's where all these ideas about Revolutionary War were first discussed. So the tavern really became an important place for the it was the center point of the village, and it was on all these so-called colonial highways, which were roadways of mud and dirt, which were actually originally laid out by the Lenni Lenape people. So that book is done quite well, and it's been keeping me really busy.
Great.
I've gotten a lot of invitations to do programs. There'll be another book. My publisher, like I said, they're very supportive, and the inside joke is always what's the next book going to be. So there'll be another book. I'm not exactly sure what it is now. I'm kicking around some ideas, but boy, as long as they're interested in me and interested in me as being one of their authors, I'm gonna ride that train until it stops. And
That's
that's
great.
it's I'm just this is a nice way for me to kind of end my career as a journalist. I'm going to ride off into the sunset, being an author. So
That's great.
I can't tell you how thankful I am and how grateful I am. One thing I should mention about diners, there's two good guys up in New England who they've really dedicated their lives to the study of diner. They're true diner historians. Larry Coltrera and Mr. Gutman, Richard Gutman. And these are two good guys. I've become friends with them. They were supportive of my work here in New Jersey. And if you ever happen to read any of their books or see their stuff online, they're true diner historians. So they got started about 30 years before I did. So they're good guys too. So that's what's next in store for me. And here I am. As you can see, I'm in my secret home office, which also is known as our spare bedroom. and
That's great.
uh, and I'm a lucky guy. I'm very happy being here.
And we are
So
very
far so
lucky.
good.
We are lucky that we
Yes.
had a chance to meet you. I feel that way. Everybody who saw your presentation in Kearney felt that way. It was an absolute hit. And on our way out, let everybody know where they can find you and your books online so that we can help drive that more.
Yeah. We had a really good turnout in Kearney. What do we did? We have like 100 people.
At
Was
least 100, if not more.
that that was that? I mean that you never know, but I give credit to Sandra McLeister. She
She's
put
great.
that event together. She's wonderful, and she's been a good friend for me with my research over the years. So, yeah, that was a real special event. You can find me pretty easily now. My younger son made a website for me. So if you Google, Michael Gabriel, History Press, you'll find me. I'm online, and you can come into the website. The website, it lists all my books, and there's one of those contact grids that you have. You can put your name, address, phone number, and you'll find me. I'm around. I'm on Facebook. Um, people know where to find me, so
Beautiful.
I'm there. I'm more than happy to talk to you.
Beautiful. Let's do this again when you write the next book. How's that sound, Michael?
That's a deal. All right,
Thank you.
that gives me an incentive.
Great. And thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it, Michael.
It's my pleasure. You're a good man. Thank you for your coverage of that event at the Kearny Library. Thank you so much for all that you did. I appreciate that.
My pleasure. All right, everybody. We'll
Uh,
see you soon. Take care.